I have a couple of examples to begin. See where I'm going. As you probably know, I was born in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, in the north suburb of Minneapolis. And then when I was 8, my dad decided he wanted to go back and get his degree. And so we moved down to rented a little farmhouse in Peterson, 10 miles from any town, in the middle of nowhere, really. Our next neighbor was a mile away. And so he went to Winona State and got his undergraduate using his GI Bill. Needless to say, growing up in that kind of environment, and he got his degree, we moved to Chatfield, not much bigger, still on the farm somewhere. But, my taste buds were pretty limited. They never had sushi. I never knew what that was until years later. Maybe 15 years ago, I tried it for the first time. A Japanese cuisine that's pretty common in Japan. And the thing that gets me is, as you may know, my father served in the Air Force for 3.5 years, 2 of those being in Japan. Well, he never talked about his stay in Japan. The only thing he talked about was he was at a restaurant, he was eating something, go, "This is really good, what is it?" "Oh, it's octopus." He never talked about any of his time. Of course, he was in 1955, a year after the Korean War was over. So he was during peacetime, but you never talked about that, Dad. You never talked about sushi or anything else. And so, limited taste buds. It wasn't until years later. And being Norwegian-Swedish, blonde and bland food, right? So, you put any spice on it, too much, it burns. It takes some getting used to. Over the years, I've adapted and gotten a little bit more used to spices. I even put hot sauce on omelets if I go out. Hot sauce. And you believe that? I remember my uncle, my mom's brother, going to a restaurant in Minneapolis, and she said, "Would you like the spice with it?" He goes, "No, I'm Norwegian." Okay. I think he was joking, but maybe not. So my senses were pretty limited. My sense of what there was in the world, and fish. I tell you what, we went to the Greasy the Greasy Spoon Cafe in Chatfield, and I ordered fish. It was bony. Little bones everywhere. It was fried, it was bony, it was terrible. And it wasn't until 6 years later that we were in the Boundary Waters, and some kids caught big northern, and let's cook them up. This was the best ever. It's amazing. Wow. I'd never had fresh fish without the bones before. Cooked over a fire or something like that. So, pretty limited. 2. Did you know Emmanuel and Pastor Vicki told me this, that their council went to a escape room down in Milwaukee. I had no idea what that was. I thought, okay, you're in one room with all these, 8, 10 people, and you're sitting trying to figure out how to get out. And so you get a list of clues, and you work together to get out. Okay. I don't think I ever want to do that, but they can have fun doing it. I would feel stupid because I wouldn't know what to do. Anyway, so last year we went down to Phoenix on vacation, and Kelly's mom was there. Dad was still in Illinois, so Kelly and me and her mom and Ariana went to escape room. Plural, rooms. Okay, so we were in this little room and try to figure out how to get out to get into the next room. And then when you're there, you try to figure out how to get into the next room, which was dark and kind of cold and scary, and you get an hour. But it's, you got this one little room, and you think, I'll get out of this room and I'll be done. Nope, there's more. Oh, okay. So you get in this room. Done. Nope, there's more. Fortunately, at the end of an hour, they turn the lights on and open the door for us. And we got out, kissed the ground beneath our feet, we're free. But there was always something more. Beyond my limited senses and sensibilities. The Sadducees were the temple priests. Their whole ministry, their whole life revolved around the temple. So, resurrection, out of our purview, which Jesus reminded them and said, you read what Moses wrote, didn't you? I mean, the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and God of the living. That was years ago. Can't you imagine? If God is the God of living, aren't they still living? Well, they couldn't see it beyond that fact. I think they're trying to trip him up because he was kind of rocking the boat. Remember when he was walking with the disciples, and the disciples said, this is fantastic, this temple. Look at how great it is. It took years to build. And Jesus said, I can break it down in a day and build it up in 3. And I'm sure the Sadducees said, wait a minute. No, you can't do that because this is where we live. This is our livelihood. And of course, in 70 A.D., the temple was destroyed, and I think the Sadducees were just, what then? What next? So they're trying to protect their own, their way of life, their prestige, their power, all that stuff. And so they're trying to get this Jesus. Let's get rid of him. Let's trip him up so that he loses all sense of credibility with everybody. But, of course, we know that Jesus never falls for it. He's always got something, an answer that he trips them up. It reverses back to them. He's saying that there's more than meets the eye. The Sadducees were like, you live this life the best you can, you die, that's it, the end. Which is not a bad philosophy, even for us who believe in the resurrection, to live this life to the fullest that we can. And then be welcomed by God into the next life that God has in store for us. But the Sadducees, nope, that's it, you're gone. Ingrid played this wonderful piece celebrating the Berlin Wall coming down. August 13th, 1961, it was erected. And you know why? I've read in Wikipedia, to keep those fascist capitalists out. We don't want them, so let's put a wall right in the middle of Berlin and keep them out. But what they didn't realize was they're keeping out their own countrymen too. And so it was a country divided. And then 28 years later, can you imagine if you were born in 1961, you wouldn't know how the other half lived. You'd be foreign to you. And those who try to sneak back and forth were arrested and dire consequences. And so when the wall came down finally, November 9th, 1989, the influx of people back and forth. I'm sure their relatives on either side that haven't seen each other for 20-some years. And they said when it went down, they had the biggest street party in the world. Celebrating, now we're reunited. But that takes a toll too, because after 28 years, there's some changes going on. And so there's got to be some communication. There's got to be something going on. But for those 26-year-olds and younger, 28-year-olds and younger, this is the way life was. They didn't know how the other half lived. So it was pretty restraining. Jesus was telling his friends and the Sadducees that in the midst of all this, we have a sense that we have to operate from our own worldview. We're limited human beings. But there's more. There's more to this life than we can comprehend. We have to use rituals and symbols to help us understand in a limited kind of way, because we'll never really understand what's going on. But there is more to life in this life than we know. And Jesus was always the one who was trying to comfort them and saying, even after I leave, you'll have the presence of God within you, called the Holy Spirit. Will guide you. That is from another place, another time, what have you. And so, not limited. God is not limited. You are, but God is not. So the possibilities are innumerable of how God will care for us, how God will follow us, how God will lead us, how God will be present with us always. Yeah, the Sadducees didn't know anything about sushi, or lutefisk for that matter, and good for them on that one. But still, God was with them as well as God is with us. Through thick and thin, however we view life, however we hold on to theology that is ours, that make us who we are, that gives us life, that gives us purpose, that motivates us to be there for others. If the Sadducees were correct, and it's only for this life, if God was only for this life, following us and being with us for this life, and then it ended, God would not be God. Because anybody can do that. You have families and friends who will be with you to the very end. But no, we have God who will be with us to the very end of this life and welcome us into the next life. And Jesus even promised that in a resurrection like mine, you'll have a resurrection as well. And Paul had written about that several times. That we're not alone. We may have a limited worldview, but we're still God's, and God is with us. Amen.